Today we're going to talk about a lot of vocabulary in the geometry. And first of all, at the very top of your notes, it says, what is geometry? And informally, geometry is the branch of mathematics that studies shapes and space. Geo means earth. And metry means measure. And I don't get too caught up in the informal definition of geometry, but sometimes I think that knowing what a prefix means in a word helps us define the word better. So I threw that out there just to know earth and measure. But when you teach geometry, when I taught it a long time ago, we started with these definitions: the point, the line segment, the plane. And the thing is when I taught geometry a long time ago, point was an undefined term. So we've been able at least to give it a little bit more meaning now. When we say point, it's a location with no sides. So we can think of just a dot on our paper as a point. But technically, it doesn't have any sides. And that's what makes geometry hard sometimes, is, well, when I draw the point, I can see it, but if I want to get really technical, then it doesn't have any size at all. But think of a point like you would think of a point. That dot on a paper. And there's two ways that we can name a point. We can name it as point P, in this particular case, or the symbol looks just like what you see in the figure. I don't tend to use that symbol very often. I usually write point P, or whatever the point is. The thing is, again, a long time ago when I taught geometry, then point is undefined, and since in the definition of line it's an infinite set of points, line also is something that was an undefined term, but thankfully over the years we've evolved a little bit to give it a little bit better definition, and it's an infinite number of points along a straight path with no end. So it continues on in one direction without ever stopping. It continues on in the other direction without ever stopping. And what we do is we name this line with 2 points. And in fact, don't write that. Let me change that up a little bit. Let's write it as line AB. Or really the symbol is AB with a line with arrows over it. Thirdly, a line segment. Well, a line segment is part of a line, and it's got 2 endpoints on it, in this case the X and the Y, and then it contains all the points in between there. And the way that we indicate a line segment is that we can say segment, if I can do that, segment, not AB this time, segment XY. But more often than not, for our symbol, it's X, Y, and if you want to get technical, that's how I tend to write it, like that. If you want to get really technical, and especially if you ever are looking online at something, it might have 2 endpoints at the end. I just do straight line. Like that. And finally, a plane. And a plane is a flat surface that extends in all directions with no end. I like to think of a flat surface as a piece of paper. But the piece of paper, it can go this way, and it can go this way, and it can go that way, and it can go that way. But it's a flat surface. And again, let's see what I put in my notes here. By the way, a plane is named by 3 points in the plane. So in this particular case here, let's see what I can do. Plane, EFG, but it can also be plane T. It's this little value right here in the corner. It's kind of in italics if you look closely on your paper. And that's another way that we could name that. A couple more vocabulary words. Collinear. Kind of makes sense. Points on the same line. And coplanar. Points in the same plane. And I throw those words at you so that now when we get to our example here, we can answer the question. And the nice thing here for me is Abdul can answer one way, and Sarah can answer another way, and Jocelyn could even answer a third way, and they're all correct answers. They don't, I mean, not every single person in this room necessarily is going to have the same answer. So you're getting just kind of my answers, so to speak, on here. It says use the diagram at the right to answer the following. And it says name the following plane. So this picture here is a plane, and there's lots of options. The first thing I notice in particular is that there's kind of this italics S in the corner. So the first thing that I think is that this is plane S. That's one of the ways. Another way to name the plane, remember, is that we can name it with 3 points. Well, some of the points in our plane here are P, T, Q, R, and N. Those are all within that flat surface. Again, that's what a plane is. So another way that we can name it is plane PTR. That's not the only way. We could do plane NTP. We could do plane RTN. If you were working ahead of me and you wrote something else down. We could do plane QTR. We could do plane PNR. 3 points within that flat surface called a plane. If we look at part B, name a line that contains point R 2 different ways. And I am going to use the symbolism for it a little bit. So point R. Here's point R. And it wouldn't hurt you even, well, I'm going to put my finger on it just to keep track of it. Here's point R. We need to name a line. Well, point R is on this particular line. So we can say RQ. Remember when we indicate a line, we're going to put it with a line with arrows on the end. put a comma because it says name a line in two different ways. Well, then look at this line. At the end of this line, there's an italics H here. That's another way to name that line that has the point R on it. Here's line H. By the way, this one is line G. There's a little italics G. Signal. Name a segment. So remember, with regard to a segment, we're going to have a line on top of it, no arrows. Name a segment that contains point T. Well, there's lots of options here, but we could say something like PT. Because remember, segment has endpoints. It stops. A line doesn't stop. I'm going to put a different one on here. Name a segment that contains point N, or point T. What if we used PN? T's in there. So there is just a couple of options. We could have said RT. We could have said RQ. Again, Madeline, Angel, Kaya. You could all have different answers. I just wrote down 4 and I only asked for 1. So just because the person sitting next to you doesn't have the same answer doesn't make you wrong. Are the points P, T, and N collinear? Well, if you look back up here at the definition, collinear, points on the same line. So are P, T, and N collinear? Yes. They're all on line G. Our points P, N, and M. P, N, and M collinear. Well, M isn't even inside the plane, so no. Flipping our paper over to get close to finishing here. Use the diagram below, and it's actually beside, to answer the following. And it says, name the plane that contains point H in 2 different ways. Well, let's see. Plane H is this plane. In fact, I don't know if my highlighter will work, but I'm going to try it to help us out a little bit. It's going to be ugly. Not too bad. But we're looking at this particular plane right there. And there's 2, because here's one and here's one, which you can't see me diagramming that on my on video. But we're looking at that particular plane that's highlighted because H is here. That's how I knew that plane. So name the plane that contains. Name the plane that contains point H in 2 different ways. Well, the way that we indicate that plane is we can name it with the italics. Ah, darn it. The italics. Still darn it. Come on. There we go. The italics name of this, which is plane. Okay. Or we name a plane with 3 different points. They have to be within that highlighted plane there that we use. I said plane A. What did I say? A, B, and H is what I said, because those are all values in there. We could say, let's make it simpler. Let's do A, G, B. Name the plane J. Name the plane that contains the point J two different ways. Well, I need to erase this here, because this time we're going to look at this particular plane. It's kind of shaded on your paper. But we're looking at that particular plane, that flat surface there. And the plane that contains J in two different ways, well, where's our italics? It's down here in the lower left corner, so we can say plane L. Or we can pick 3 points within that plane. And I'll try to be a little bit consistent. Why don't we just say plane DGC? There's 3 points that are inside of that flat surface. So DGC. By the way, if you wrote CGD, or you used J somehow in that, that's fine. We're not limited to one answer. And that's what I'm afraid might take me a little longer to grade. And we'll see. As we look at letter C, at what point do line MN and line AB intersect? So I'm going to erase again. Let's see what happens. Well, let's find line MN. Line MN is here. And line AB is here. And at what point do they intersect? Well, it looks like point G. Same idea. And hopefully what you're seeing here is maybe you want to draw all over your drawings. That's the beauty of not having a book. You have your own paper, you can draw. You might want to write in pencil so you can erase, as I'm going to do right here, again, to look at the picture. But at what line do plane K, so here's plane K, and plane L intersect? And what line do those two intersect? Oh. Line MN, which I really meant to write MN with arrows on top of them. Letter E, are points C, G, and D coplanar? Just come up here and point. C, D, and G. They're all within this kind of vertical looking plane. So yes. And lastly, are points E, B, and A coplanar. E, notice E is outside of that plane. It's outside of both of them. So no. E is outside of the plane. So finish, and I'm sorry I took a little bit longer than I anticipated. But take a couple minutes and answer these 4 quick questions